that matters in this election, the only thing that matters in this election, is keeping Donald Trump and Project 2025 out of power. Keeping that insane ideology of white Christian nationalism and white supremacy and white male Christian dominance out of power. That's all that matters. I genuinely don't care who the Democratic nominee is, and I'm being real. I don't care.
Biden has won before when people thought that he couldn't win. If you'll remember, he wasn't the guy that was running ahead of everyone. He can do this if we focus on the real threat, Project 2025, Donald Trump, and MAGA America.
Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
I'll tell you this. The communists do that very, very, very well. Always on message. All of them, same message over and over and over again. Granted, it's all lies and crap. You get that, but they are always on message. We could probably learn from that. But what is this big, scary white nationalist Project 2025? Joining me now, Steve Groves of the Great Heritage Foundation, part of this Project 2025. The fact that it's heritage already tells me I probably want to wrap my arms around it and give it a big old sloppy kiss, but I don't know. Steve has to tell us what's on there. Steve, what's in this big scary project?
I know it's so scary that about 100 think tanks have got together and come up with a bunch of very conservative policy recommendations for the next president that we hope that he will adopt once he wins in November. There's nothing secret. There's no conspiracy going on behind closed doors. It's all written right here in black and white. You know, we've got this rather lengthy book called The Mandate for Leadership, The Conservative Promise, that's available for free online. Should any of your viewers like to get down to the details of what we're recommending. But you're quite right about the left getting on message. They want to attack a project and say lies about the project and hang it around Trump's neck as if it was his idea, when it's not. It's a bunch of very committed conservative activists and policy analysts making recommendations to the next president. But by their reaction, you can tell we're over the target.
No doubt you're over the target. So give us a skinny on this whole thing, Steve. What is it? Obviously, I am familiar with it, but most people are not. All they get is the lies, which they know are lies on CNN, but they don't know what this thing is, what's in it. What do you want done?
Well, you know, when a presidential candidate's running for office, they rarely have the time or the resources to think about the nitty-gritty of policy implementation. So what the Project 2025 has done is bring together thousands of conservative policy analysts, activists, and former Trump administration officials to come up with policy recommendations for all of the agencies. Everything from the State Department to the Defense Department to Health and Human Services to Housing and Urban Development, so that when the president wins in November and it wins his reelection, there are thousands of recommendations available for him to consider so that we can implement them, hit the ground running during that first 180 days of his second term. And so that's what it is. Recommendations, very conservative, very well thought out recommendations with implementation plans. And we also have a database of conservatives, thousands of conservatives who have come to Project 2025 and entered their resume and information into our database so that we can review them, vet them, interview them, and recommend them to serve in the next administration. So it's policy, it's personnel, it's recommendations. That's what Project 2025 is all about.
I have noticed something in recent years that the left will oftentimes frame my views on things better than the right does. I saw this Nick Ackerman on MSNBC freaking out, and man, this sounded wonderful to me. Here he was.
We know that Project 2025, it has an actual chapter on the Department of Justice and the installation of loyalists in the Department of Justice. And so, Nick, it would be a disaster of epic proportions if somebody like Trump is back in office with a blueprint like Project 2025 for the DOJ.
No question about it. I mean, he's first of all going to get rid of all of these civil servants. I mean, he's basically going to eviscerate the entire civil service at the Department of Justice.
Is that on the table, Steve? Because that sounds fantastic to me.
Well, what we're certainly going to do is make sure that there are people at the Department of Justice who are dedicated to implementing President Trump's his agenda. And the recommendations of personnel and the policy recommendations that we'll be making are designed to do just that. There's also something called Schedule F, which is something that the President Trump is already in favor of, where you take the top layers of the federal bureaucracy and make them more accountable to the president. During the president's first term, there were layers and layers of bureaucrats that slow-rolled and prevented and put up barriers to President Trump's agenda. This time around, the recommendations that Project 2025 are making are meant to prevent that from happening again in the sequel. And President Trump has already expressed a desire to implement something like Schedule F. So Ackerman is right to that extent. We are going to assert control over the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is not an entity unto itself. It is not a branch of government unto itself. It is part of the executive branch, which is led by the president.
Trump himself came out and said, hey, I don't know anything about this. I don't have anything to do with this. This is not me at all. Now, I simply took that as Trump campaigning, trying to play defense against what they're trying to dump on him. But what do you make of that statement?
Well, as you see, the lies that the left and the Democrats are telling are twofold. They want to lie about Project 2025 and make it out to be something that it's not. And then they want to hang those lies over President Trump's neck as if these were his ideas. Both of these things are lies. This is a separate independent project of thousands of conservatives who are making recommendations to President Trump. These lies the left and President Biden have been telling may have become a distraction. The last thing you want when you're campaigning for president is to have a distraction. But that doesn't change any of the fundamentals of Project 2025. The recommendations, the implementation plans, the personnel recommendations, they will all still be at President Trump's disposal when he wins in November. And we'll take it up then and fight back against the left's lies and Biden's lies. Biden tweeted something about Project 2025, and he goes, look, go on the internet and look it up, and then gave a false URL to a website set up by Democrat lefty activists that made lies about Project 2025. So the lies about the project go all the way up to the Oval Office. It's on Twitter today. Biden's lies.
Well, congratulations to you for getting so much publicity for Project 2025, courtesy of the dirty commies. How do we get a GOP willing to implement any of these things, Steve? Look, I love them. Going down the list, hard to find very many arguments in there, but what we lack is the spine to implement these things, at least from what I've seen.
Well, there's an old saying in Washington that goes back years: personnel is policy. President Trump learned some hard lessons during his first term, lessons that he's been able to ruminate on for the past 3.5 years. Choosing the right cabinet officials, choosing the right senior officials, that's the most important thing that a president can do to ensure that the president's vision and the president's agenda gets implemented and is not blocked, is not slow-rolled by people that disagree with it. If you're a cabinet official, if you're a senior official in the government, and even if you are a senior bureaucrat in the executive branch, your job is not to question and block the president's agenda. Your job is to implement it. So we need to find those conservatives. Part of Project 2025 is to find those conservatives, ask them to sign up to our personnel database so that they can be vetted and recommended for roles in the next administration.